Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, you are all welcome to this broadcast. Today, I just want to make it known that the question of referendum has been explained, has been outlined by President Chris Ano, and I'm just here to elaborate on some points about the issues that he raised in his speech. So please stay tuned, share as wide as you can, and I'll be right back as we move in the show. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I will play some excerpt about President Chris Ano's outing, and we will be analyzing it as we go forward. So just bear with me about let me bring it up so that we can listen and we can all, even though it's long, but I will play some excerpt, and I want all of us to get some understanding of that.
The referendum that we need. And this is the subject of the message I bring to you today. Again, it is the referendum that Ambazonia needs. In other words, the kind of referendum that we need. I am Chris Ano, your comrade in arms for a free and independent Southern Cameroons, Ambazonia. Today is May the 1st, Monday, May the 1st, in the year of our Lord, 2023. Last Monday, April the 24th, some Ambazonian groups, including yours truly, representing the interim government and other stakeholders in their own right, met in Washington, D.C. at the invitation of the Hudson Institute. On top of the agenda was getting all stakeholders, groups, or individuals to agree on a resolution that can quickly bring the conflict to an end. Also on the agenda was unity and collaboration in messaging, especially when related to the international community. In assembling the leaders and stakeholders, The Hudson Institute felt that if all are seen to be speaking and channeling the same message to the international community, the possibilities are higher that our message can have more traction, contrary to when groups and stakeholders unilaterally communicated to the world. But again, the top agenda point was finding out the fairest, easiest, and enduring solution to the 7-year conflict. The subject of referendum was suggested by our host as not only the quickest way to end the conflict, but equally the one method easily marketable to international partners. The subject was put to a rigorous and spirited debate. All the 14 participants, that is, with the exception of our observers, had an opportunity to make contributions. Every Ambazonian in the meeting agreed to the idea of a referendum. We agreed that it is the route most needful at this moment for Ambazonians to pursue. The consensus was so unanimous that a vote was not needed to arrive at it. The meeting did not discuss the modalities for such a referendum. However, it was agreed that such modalities will be made only after further wide consultations with the Ambazonian people. The quorum was certainly too small to handle the subject, and besides, it would have been a rush discussing modalities in a 3-hour meeting. It is imperative, ladies and gentlemen, that we understand what the idea of this referendum does not seek to do. This referendum does not seek to deny by any way or means the independence granted the former British Southern Cameroons in United Nations Resolution 1608 of 1961. However, we are agreed that many things have since changed ever Cameroon began the crusade of trying to integrate us into their country. The referendum does not seek to deny the fact that there are no articles of union between La République du Cameroun and the Southern Cameroons. Rather, it merely acknowledges that the two countries have lived together as in dating, as in a man and a woman, they call it in Jumba Palaba, coming to live together. But that, over the years, they have grown to be so many irreconcilable differences, triggering the need for the people of Ambazonia to back out of the Njumba Palava, and that their voices must be heard. This referendum idea does not mean that we are against a negotiated settlement either. We are still very supportive of any internationally negotiated process that promises us an independent Ambazonia. So far, La République du Cameroun appeared not to be interested in one. Within a short period of 4 months, ladies and gentlemen, they have walked away from 2 of such processes, the Swiss and the Canadian. Accepting a referendum does not mean that we are so desperate for one, even if the conditions are not fair and just, of course not. We are not fixated to a referendum. We have not signed onto one yet. What we have here is an expression of intent. What this means is that for us to sign onto a referendum, the conditions will have to be fair and just and guarantee that there will be no loopholes hindering our people from freely expressing and exercising their right to vote, and that all votes must be counted. The referendum must be organized and monitored by the United Nations and other international organizations, including the African Union. Voting will have to be restricted to Ambazonians only. La République du Cameroon will have no say, no role in the organization and conduct of the exercise. Logistics will have to be provided for by the international organizations conducting the referendum. The United Nations and partners will have to determine registration procedure. We assume that again, La République du Cameroon shall have no role to play from conception to announcement of the results. Some of you may be asking, but why a referendum at this time after 7 years of fighting? Allow me to explain it in parabolic language. If you are embarked on a journey by way of a bus or airplane, and it happens to catch on fire, and firefighters show up to put off the fire but cannot open the door of the plane nor the bus, and they succeed only in tearing open the window, will you refuse to use the window to vacate the bus or the plane because only the door must be used? Of course not. Nothing. If you insist on using only the door, you may die inside before that door is open. That is, if they can even open it. This is our crusade. This our crusade for freedom can be likened to this type of journey. We are in a bus or plane that is being asphyxiated. What do you do when you feel suffocation? You rush to get out through any available channel. In our case, our available channel is a win-win channel. There is no way we lose in a referendum. There is no way we do not arrive
Ambazonian.
Here is what I call the Federal Republic Independent Ambazonia. When we were young, going to school or to the farm, some chose to use the motorable roads, which were longer, and some chose to use the bush tracks, what we call conshots, which were shorter. Both arrived to school or farm, but of course, as rocky interiors as the bush parts were, those who used it still arrived, and in most cases, arrived first. Let me assure you that we are so desperate for a free Ambazonia that we will not ignore any route that gives us a free and independent Southern Cameroon's Ambazonia. A free Ambazonia is all we want, and how we get it is completely irrelevant. We just have to get there. That's all that we want. We cannot be fixated on historical facts to the extent we forget or ignore what our end goal is. Spare me the history. If it will not give us Ambazonia, it is useless. It's been over 60 years, ladies and gentlemen, since we started talking history. The only thing good about it is that it awakened our consciences and got us where we are now. That is it. But we must then move out of here to our destination. The means certainly determines the end, they say, not history, as relevant as it is. We have preached our history for 60 years. Show me how many international partners have agreed or listened to us or been convinced to come to our support because of it. None. Even those who made the history and witnessed it find it difficult to get back to it. But it is possible that we can get their attention using the reality of the moment, the humanitarian situation of the moment. We have been fighting for 7 years. How much international assistance?
Fellow Ambazonia.
Come to us. In this newfound opportunity, we now have partners who are prepared to do the legwork because they are convinced that our message and demand is clear, simple, fair, and just. Why shouldn't we seize on this opportunity? The referendum creates the opportunity for a ceasefire on ground zero. This means that once both parties have agreed to one, French Cameroon troops are pulled back and replaced with an international peacekeeping force. Of course, our own troops are also pulled back. The killing squads of Cameroon are finally gone. Our people can once more live in peace while waiting for the day of the vote to come. They can go about their businesses as before the war. All hostilities would have been brought to a halt. Perhaps the biggest advantage still is the voice of the people having the final say. La République du Cameroun has been trying very hard in the 7 years of the war to convince the international community that it is the diaspora that is talking and promoting secession, as they like to call it. La République du Cameroun wants the world to believe that Ambazonians want a one and indivisible Cameroon with special status. If, ladies and gentlemen, listen to me, if La République du Cameroun is very convinced about this, then a referendum provides them with such an opportunity to seal the argument, isn't it? But also consider this. We have seen this tendency in some diaspora leaders, the tendency to present themselves as sole owners of Ambazonia, the ones to decide the fate of Ambazonia. In a referendum, diaspora leadership will be off the table. Their confusion will be off the table. A referendum shifts the final decision from the diaspora to ground zero. And any diaspora leader who wants you to believe there will be no referendum, there can be no referendum, that leader is.
Fellow Ambazonians, when I go salary, it is chop, it is fat, it come out.
Is not fighting for you. They are fighting for their bellies. They are politicians and not freedom leaders. The people will have to have the final say. And this does not mean, however, that the diaspora is not qualified to vote or participate or advise. It means merely that no single group, not even this interim government or stakeholder or warlord in the diaspora, decides for the people. Absolutely not. They will have to fly to ground zero to cast their own vote just as any other person, any other Ambazonian on the ground. I guess this is one of the reasons some of these so-called leaders are so worried and have embarked on sabotaging this roadmap. Unfortunately for them, the voice of the people will have to be supreme. It will have to be supreme. Any diaspora leader who wants you to believe that a referendum is a bad idea should give you the alternative and a practical method to attaining it. Some of them, just for the sake of disagreement, say, oh, a referendum is not what we need. It should be a plebiscite. Can anyone point to any country that has attained independence in the last 30 years or 50 years through a plebiscite? Can anyone show me that? Let me take you back to this historical argument being advanced by some people with very dubious characters. They have laid out the historical facts of our independence, which are quite correct. However, that alone does not give us back our country. These comrades oppose a referendum, but have failed to propose pragmatic solutions. A referendum has legitimacy in our case in Amazonia on the grounds that, despite the legitimacy of the historical facts, we still have among us some southern Cameroonians who are still craving for a one Cameroon, and some are still occupying positions in the government and institutions of La République du Cameroon. It only makes it fair, ladies and gentlemen, that their voices too will be heard. In fact, it is only by giving everybody and every shade of opinion in Amazonia the opportunity that we would have proven to La République du Cameroon that the idea that Southern Cameroonians still want to live with them in the United Republic of Cameroon is false. Eritrea went through an internationally organized referendum, despite the clarity of their case in international law, for the same reason, to give a voice to all its citizens. It is not just enough to lay out our case, our history. Those who have laid out our case ought to equally lay out a solution and the means to attain it. Firepower has to be increased. Firepower must remain. Ladies and gentlemen, the mechanism whereby we sustain the fight and draw Cameroon to this referendum or the negotiation table. But we must bring alternatives to the attention of the international community while we fight. Fighting, talking, and diplomacy must be our strategy. The question is, talking about what? Repeating the history of the violations which have brought us to war? Of course not. We must float reasonably attainable objectives which will lead to victory while fighting to pressurize the international community to take action. Not only has La République du Cameroon rejected a negotiated settlement, the chief of staff of its genocide forces only yesterday in Bamenda reaffirmed that it will intensify its genocidal campaign to subdue our people to victory. We have a message to him and his genocidal masterminds. They will fail miserably. No retreat, no surrender. The genocidal statement of La République du Cameroon calls for a strong response from our people and the restoration forces. We have a fundamental right to defend ourselves against an external aggression that we did not invite. On the other hand, some of our people who are engaged in this struggle have accurately emphasized the justice of our cause and the need for the restoration of our independence, which was recognized by the United Nations. We are all united on that objective. The issue which is at the core of our support for an international supervised referendum is that the United Nations has increasingly used that mechanism of referendum to conclusively resolve justified international conflicts such as ours. It was used in the case of Eritrea, in East Timor, in South Sudan, and recently it has received support in the Saharan Arab Democratic Republic conflict. In our case, after the AAC won in Bamenda in 1993, in Boya in 1993, and Bamenda in 1994, if I'm correct there with the dates. Pardon me if I'm not. Our leaders organized a signature referendum in which more than 90% voted for the restoration of our independence. The record of the signature referendum was sent to the United Nations. So bringing back the idea of an internationally organized referendum is an attainable objective for the actualization of our independence. Even federalists like Cardinal Toomey believe in the referendum objective and indeed conducted a survey which showed an overwhelming majority supporting our total freedom and independence. Again, those who have accurately recounted the history of our just cause have not laid out a credible avenue of obtaining our independence with reasonable international support. They are relying on La République du Cameroon coming to the negotiation table. We too want a credible, internationally mandated, organized, negotiated settlement as soon as possible. When that occurs, an internationally organized referendum will still be a strong possibility or solution. Why should we then have to wait for La République du Cameroon to control the international mood by deciding whether an internationally mandated mediation will take place or not? They walked away from the internationally endorsed Swiss initiative and publicly rejected the Canadian process without consequences. This conduct of La République du Cameroon requires a rethinking and a strong response from all of us. La République du Cameroon has opted for a genocidal war, and war alone, without any alternative. It is irresponsible for us, therefore, to want to wait for a change of mind of La République du Cameroon when we know it is not coming. Therefore, recounting the history of our just cause and making demands on the international community for a solution without at the same time suggesting a solution to resolve the conflict is the most irresponsible thing that can be heard from any leader or from any Southern Cameroonian. That is the reason why we here at the interim government have endorsed an internationally mandated and organized referendum for the resolution of the conflict. May God bless you all, and thanks for listening, and please send this message to the next handset, to the next phone. Let it get into the hands of every Amazonian home and abroad. I am your comrade in arms, Chris Anu.
Thank you. That was President Chris Ano there in the message. I think that for this message, there were some pertinent point that I want to, expatiate on, because it is very important that when we get what we call from the horse's mouth, okay, you want to analyze it, you want to talk much about it, because President Chris Ano and other leaders attended that Washington conference with the representatives from the American government, from the Hudson University, as you all have heard in the speech. Okay? We have to be very positive when it comes to opportunities in this struggle. I know people are very skeptical because of the past events and some leaders who have betrayed their calling in some respect when it comes to managing the conflict and also managing certain opportunities that they mishandle. Okay, but in every business that you do, this is not new when it comes to learning why you go forward, because most of the leaders or all the leaders, even those people who are now in the struggle, had no experience when it comes to a revolution. Okay, so there are a lot of mistakes going forward, but when you are positive, you use mistakes for the better, because those mistakes are things that make you learn. But there are people who don't want to learn from mistakes. They think that they know too much, and those are the kind of leaders that don't listen. You must be a good listener. You must be someone who is ready to learn. Okay, you must be a unifier. You must be a problem solver. Okay, those qualities are qualities that is needed, okay, from a leader. And if you are one of those leaders that cannot communicate these ideas, you are doomed to fail. You are doomed to fail. So today I want to talk on those points that the president mentioned. I like the fact that he made it clear that the referendum issue will not, okay, it's not a unilateral proposal. It's not something that is all or nothing rule. No, it's one of those options. And the issue here is that most of the leaders that were not contacted or were contacted and did not want to attend, the sole reason, most of them, they are trying to define referendum, compare referendum and plebiscite, and so on and so forth. Okay, but the president made it clear: any path that will lead us to independence, you won't take it, because it's through the window and not the door. When the car is burning, do you care whether you only pass through the door, or if you see an opening through the window, you pass? So those are simple things, and we have to understand the details of this type of program is done by international community. La Republique will not have a hand in it. No, they cannot take two warring factions and they ask the other one to go and conduct the election. Okay, the international observers will be there to do this voting. So why are people complaining even before something happens? Okay, it doesn't make sense. Okay, we want to see a kind of gathering of leaders who are coming to talk with purpose. Like, for example, any leader that was not here can call the other leaders and they discuss, rather than going to call the American government officials. Then they'll be asking, and this is what has been going on. Even if it's a good event that was organized by somebody who is from La Republique, or if it was organized by somebody who want to help in the process of ending the crisis, why will you first of all reject opportunities like this. Why? When you are fighting, okay, you are there, you reject opportunities to settle the crisis. I know I will still emphasize on the issue of the length of time that a referendum takes, the length of time that negotiation takes, the length of time that any other peace process takes. So people think that if they say referendum, then they will just go and vote today. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work. Referendum would take long time. Okay, it would take long time. And when you have this unique case of Southern Cameroon case is unique because of the history of British and French Cameroon. Okay, and Southern Cameroon stand outstanding because the international community already vote for your independence. So they are not coming again to vote for independence. We are not going there to vote for any independence. We are going there to vote for overwhelming acceptance that yes, allow these people in peace. Okay, so when you see people talking of all these resolution 1608 and all those articles of union, of course, but when you go for negotiation can still lead to referendum. And no matter the outcome of that negotiation, what I realize is that La Republic will not want to go there with will settle it without trying to see if they can manipulate. Okay. But when you have a kind of marriage where we call Njomba marriage, it's very difficult for you to hold on to power when these people are that kind of relationship where they go and look for greener pasture. So we have those issues that the president mentioned. This referendum has nothing to do with a refusal for a negotiation. You know, some people will say, "Oh no, you people went and choose a referendum. It means that there is no negotiation." Even before the referendum, there will be negotiation. So you people are calling negotiation. You think that if it's an international community that is being a mediator power, you think that what do you think they're gonna advise La Republic to do? To advise them and leave to those people, let them go. So there are things that we have to understand. The president mentioned about expression of intent, and that is it. This gathering or this meeting that was held in Washington DC with all these leaders and American government reps, it was all about trying to see how some path, okay, to the crisis, to resolve the crisis, okay, finding out the fairest and easiest way to resolve the crisis. And some people would think that the crisis will end one day and they'll go to negotiation one day and the crisis will end. And not all negotiation process will work. Okay. And we can still have a referendum, and the referendum doesn't come in our favor. But from every indication, all the places that we have been, if you see an opportunity, take it. Okay. the international community want us to have a unified, message. That the messages should be unique, because the issue of trying to ask about what is inside a a pot even before the food dawns. You are asking which day for the which not can you are know, but if you hurry too much, fire will burn you. Don't hurry. Don't fall into those trap of going into those meetings and conferences that does not have anything to do with the struggle or does not help the struggle in any way. Okay, I allowed all those activists who gathered in Belgium. I allowed the other leaders who are gathering in New York and Washington DC. I also allowed those workers, okay, who are working so hard, and so those are some issues that I wanted to bring. Okay, all along, most of some surrogates of some leaders were only talking about their own interests. Okay, they were talking about their own interests. Okay, the president has announced the Ghost Town days. Okay, so we have against the 20th May, we have a lockdown. Okay, and people should understand this lockdown is towards 20th May. Okay, you see, the international community is coming now to have meetings with us. Okay, and when we neglect those things, how do you want them to survive? We want to make sure that whatever we're doing, okay, any discussion about referendum will have all those pillars. Okay, the whole process, how it go look like, the registration, everything that we want to discuss, to make sure that whenever we are going in with a solid team. Yeah. We saw the president mentioning so many different examples, like East Timor, South Sudan, and so on and so forth. Okay. The way I love the way Tibo Nagy was expressing his feeling about the crisis and about the referendum thing. He told that guy in a Cossack, how they call him. He held most of those issues, but what the president mentioned was that no retreat, no surrender. It means that whatever happens, be it referendum, be it a negotiation process going on, there will be no retreat, no surrender. There will be, okay, everything will still be the same, but our people will not relent to keep fighting for their right. It's their right, it's not somebody else's right. Okay, that's the human right. So, we'll not talk much about those other aspects that were not really important. We know that we have Ghost Town on the 18th. Okay, up to the 20th. Ghost Town, the 20th May. So we are trying to let the Amazonian people know that whatever we are doing, lockdown and all these Ghost Town and so on and so forth, is part of a referendum. So I hope we should understand this. Okay, once we get about 9,000 people who can be sampled they can still go in for the vote. Okay, and they do sample and they like what I think Cardinal Tumi use sampling, and when you use sampling, you try to sample their likes and to see how they favor the referendum. Okay, but in most of these countries, they are former colonial countries. But what is important is the mission of the leaders. The mission of the leaders to make sure that things move in the right direction. And I hope that as the day go by, we'll get more information about those modalities for the election and how the international community is expecting, okay, the voting modality, the organization of the referendum, the determination of who to vote, okay, and who to supervise, whether United Nations supervision and African Union, and so on and so forth. So all these are things that we should try and see. The leaders will be charged with this to see what type of referendum will best fit Amazonia, and trying to consult with South Sudan and Eritrea and all these countries that are also similarly fighting for independence or fighting for something else. But we have seen this example and others. We can follow the same. South Sudan, Eritrea, and so on. Okay. So thank you for listening. It was nice talking to everybody, and God bless you and stay blessed in the mighty name of Jesus. And please share.